Happy Friday. I think that's how I'm going to start the podcast now, since we're going to be posting on Fridays from now on. Also, this just feels really close. A little disclaimer right off the bat, it is a little bit loud. So if you hear things in the background, no you didn't. I have mentioned this last week, but I really want to start making episodes more on things that I have kind of struggled with, things that I have been going through and just barely got to an end point, just barely had that epiphany about it. And so today's episode is going to be literally something that I had a realization about 20 minutes ago. I've been meaning to record the podcast all day kind of, and I had a completely different topic picked out, and I'm still going to do an episode on that topic, but this one, dude, I have to talk about this one, okay? There's got to be people out there that relate to this topic and this situation. Let's just get right into it. So basically, the epiphany that I've had I just had it 20 minutes ago, but this is a realization, a self-realization that I've kind of come to, I'd say over the last week, of something that I've probably struggled with my whole life, but I've noticed the most the last 2 or 3 years. Having an issue trying to control things that are out of my control, or control every input in a situation where that's not my job. It's not my job to control those certain things. It's not my job to figure those certain things out. And I've finally come to that realization and been okay, yeah, these certain things are not in my control, and I am causing myself this stress. Or I'm making a situation so much worse than it is because I want to be able to predict the outcome, and so I'll self-sabotage. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who do this. Maybe I'm just saying that to make myself feel better, but I think probably a lot of people struggle with wanting to have the control of things that are out of their control. And so this is just kind of the realization that I've had, and throughout this episode I'm going to use little examples of ways that I've noticed it the most in my life lately. And yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today, is worrying about the things that you can control and the things that are in your control. So the first thing that I really want to hit in this topic is what even is in your control. What are the inputs that are yours, inputs that are up to you? And so the ones that I've kind of come up with is your self-talk. That is in your control. You are the one that is controlling that input. Next one is your words, your energy, your response to the situation. You cannot control every other aspect of the situation, if you're in a negative situation or when bad things happen, because bad things happen, and that's just how it is. You control how you respond to that situation. Even though you may not be able to control the fact of it happening, you control how you react to it. And the last one is the one that I probably struggle with the most, is you control your attitude and your emotions. And it's really easy to let other things kind of determine your emotions, or let your emotions get out of control from trying to control other aspects of a situation that are out of your control. When you're trying to control every single thing in a situation, it gets overwhelming because you can't. Or you'll make the situation so much bigger than it is because you're not able to predict that. And if you have a negative outcome already in mind, it's almost instinctively you're going to do things to make that situation go that negative route, because at least that's something that you can predict. So now for the things that are out of your control, the past. I talked about this in last week's episode. The past is completely out of our control, and focusing on things that happened in the past, or ways you reacted in the past, or situations that happened in the past, is only going to make you feel dread. And the more that you focus on it, the more out of control you're going to feel, because that is the one thing that you can't do anything about. The past already happened. And so trying to constantly control it is just going to drive you crazy. The only thing that we can do with the past is reflect on it. Other than that, the past should have no effect on how we feel in the present moment, because it already happened. Next thing is other people. You cannot control the other person in a situation, and you are not in control of if someone is mad at you or if someone's upset with you, trying to predict that. That's something I'm really bad at, is if someone's tone of voice changes or if someone seems a little bit off, I just automatically assume I did something, they're upset with me. You know, if someone gets a little bit distant, I automatically assume it's me. But like, I'm not in control of their emotions. Like, it's not my job to figure out if someone's mad at me, and it's not your job to figure out if someone's mad at you. It is their responsibility, it is in their control to communicate that they're upset. And if they don't, then you can't assume that someone's mad at you or that you did something to make someone feel that way. Reading people's body language, a lot of the time, like getting caught up on it, can make you overthink it and think that it's something you did. And maybe it is, but you can't assume unless they tell you, hey, like, you upset me. And so you cannot control other people, and you can't control their emotions, and you can't control how they react to things. People are not always going to react in the way that you would hoped or in the way that you would prefer, and you just have to go with it, and you just have to choose how you're going to respond to how they reacted. Because trying to control how someone reacts to certain things is never going to have a good outcome. You know, you're going to end up disappointed, and it's going to cause a toxic situation in itself. And so the only thing that you can control is how you react to that person's situation. Next thing you can't control is the media. The media, especially right now, is kind of scary, and like, it's all over TikTok, it's all over Instagram, like all of the negative things going on in the world. You cannot control that. You cannot control the negative things going on in the world, and I know it can feel super overwhelming sometimes, but what you can control is your intake of the media. And what you can control is how you respond to that information, you know? But you can't control the fact that it is happening. And you can't control the way that other people are reacting to it and the way that other people view it. And as much as you may be like, how are you viewing it this way? You can't control how they are viewing it and how they are reacting it. People view things in different ways, unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, you know. And all you can do is control how you're feeling in that situation and what you do. The last thing I want to talk about, like, that's out of your control, is other people's opinions and views on you. When you are a people pleaser, it is really hard to not care what other people think of you and to not take things personal that other people say. But 99% of the time, people are speaking out of insecurity. And so if someone's saying something bad about you, like I said, 99% of the time, it's coming from some sort of insecurity they have in themselves. Because everybody, as you pushed out, there's something in you that is triggering them. And that's not your responsibility. You know, that's not your responsibility to take care of. And you cannot fix how everyone feels about you. You cannot fix how everyone views you. All you can do is choose to not let it affect you. You choose your reaction to someone else's opinion, but you can't control their opinion on you. There's different laws of spirituality, and one of them is the law of detachment. And the law of detachment pretty much says, you know, you go through life unattached to everything in it. Not that you don't care, but that you don't let it affect you. Nothing outside of yourself affects how you think and how you feel. And living in that mindset is the best way to stop trying to control things outside of you. So something that, like, the reason that I came to this realization, and the older siblings are going to get this, but I have a really big issue of trying to control and be like a parental figure almost for my little siblings. And sometimes that's good, sometimes it's needed, but like, I let it get to an overwhelming point for myself where it affects my relationship with them, and it affects like me. Like, I get stressed, I get overwhelmed, I'm putting too much on my plate, and that's me. I control what I'm taking in, and I control what I'm putting on my plate, right? And I control what I'm stressing about and what I'm letting take my emotion from me. And so I kind of got to the realization that I was like, I gotta play my role. My role is big sister, and that is what I need to play. And of course, if my siblings need extra help or anything like that, I'm going to step in to the extent that it doesn't put me in a bad place or put me in harm's way. A lot of the time, we are very willing to kind of let people walk all over us or put way too much on our plate taking care of other people because we care about them and we worry about the outcome that could happen if we don't control that situation. And sometimes it's not your situation to control. Things have to play out. And so if it's not a dangerous situation or anything like that, like no one's in harm, sometimes you have to give your support to the extent that you are able to and go from there and not be attached to the outcome of the situations that happen. I think, honestly, to some extent, we all have the instinct to try and control everything in a situation, but like once you start doing it, it can get to a point where it becomes a toxic trait. And that's when you really need to sit down and be like, okay, like you can be self-sabotaging situations for yourself, or you can be ruining relationships because you want to have that predictability. A lot of the time that's what it comes from, is the predictability of what's going to happen. And when things feel out of your control, they feel so much more scary. Another thing we can't control is the future. All we can control is the present moment. There's always going to be things that come out of nowhere and things that just cause a lot of stress or change how things are going to go and don't end up going the way that you expected they would or that you hoped they would. And there's no way to do anything about that. And like, I'm saying this to you, but I'm also saying this to like me. There's no way to control everything. Here are just some little thoughts that I came up with on this topic, like just little notes that because like I came to this realization, I was like, I need to record. So I wrote down a bunch of little notes. I always write down little notes when I do a podcast, but like I just wrote down all the little thoughts that were going in my head. And so I kind of want to share those because those are the main points. Like these are the things that I feel like kind of really gets the point across. So if it's out of your hands, it should be out of your mind too, because like I've been saying this whole episode, things that are out of your control that you keep putting on the forefront of your mind and constantly thinking about, you're driving yourself crazy. Genuinely, you're not going to be able to control that situation, and so it should not be in your mind either. You only control your emotions in a situation and your response in a situation. And so those should be the things that you're worrying about. Unfortunately, we don't have the predictability of how other people are going to react or how other things are going to go. We control how we show up in that situation. And it's scary. And, you know, you can't really control outcomes like with it going that way. But all you can do is find comfort in the detachment, like the law of detachment, finding comfort in yourself and being detached from any outcome and thinking in the sense that like you're always where you're supposed to be and everything is always working out for you. That's kind of like an affirmation. Everything is always working out for me. Some people like to do affirmations, some people don't. I've talked a lot about affirmations and how important I think they are and how much they can really change your brain patterns and just kind of what you're thinking about, like your thought patterns. So that's kind of an affirmation that you can tell yourself when you're kind of in the moment and really, really overthinking something. Overthinking and this whole like need to control thing, I don't think these type of things ever really go away, but I think you can learn how to manage them so that when you start responding to things in a situation, you can kind of talk yourself out of that big response and that big blow up almost. So something that I kind of have came up with, because I am someone who's pretty reactive and I will react kind of extreme in situations sometimes, trying to control it. Like when things are feeling out of control, I can sometimes respond in a pretty intense way. And so something that I've come up with for myself is thinking, okay, if I still feel this way and still feel like I need to say this or still feel like I need to do this in an hour, then I can do it. Usually 99% of the time I do not feel that way anymore. It's just in the moment my emotions get a lot, and a lot of people have big emotions. That's something that I learned. Like I used to work in the elementary schools a lot up until recently, and that is something that they talk about a lot in the schools is big emotions. It's not that you're too much or you're overreacting. Some people have big emotions. And being able to control your big emotions, a lot of the time once you're cooled down, you're able to think a little bit more level-headed. So give yourself an hour or even 30 minutes and be like, okay, if I still feel this way in 30 minutes, then I can do it. And 99% of the time, you will feel different and you will be like, all right, I don't actually want to do that, because it could make the situation a lot worse. And then by the time the situation is towards its end, that's when you're like, I wish I would responded differently. And it's a never ending cycle, you know? So being able to like stop yourself then and be like, all right, I need to take a step back. I need to take some space. If I still feel this way, then I can respond that way. Then I can do that. Another thing is realizing not everything is about you. You are the main character of your life, yes, but you're not the main character of everyone's life. And so coming to the realization that like someone's emotions are not always determined off of you. Someone's reactions are not always determined off of you. You are the main character of your life and they are the main character of their life. They've got a lot of other things going on in their mind besides just you. And like, I'm sounding kind of harsh, but I'm also talking to like myself here. You know what I mean? And sometimes it takes a little bit of a blunt statement to make it click. And so realizing, yes, you are the main character of your life, prioritize yourself, you know, but so is everyone else. Everyone else is going to do that same exact thing. So sometimes people could be upset because of something else in their head. It's not always you, and I mean that with love. It's not always you that is causing someone's emotions to be rocky, and if it is their job to communicate with you. It is not your job to figure it out and try and, you know, push and push and push until they'll communicate that with you, because that's a really bad habit I have, is I will kind of push and push until someone will communicate with me. And a lot of the time it's not even anything to do with me, and you know, it's not right to push someone on that. So just finding comfort and knowing, all right, they've got their own life, they've got their own things going on. If it involves me, they can tell me and we can talk about it. And if they don't, then we won't talk about it. This last one is like a little quote that I saw on Pinterest. You can do anything, but you can't do everything. You cannot control everything in a situation. You cannot do everything and be everything for everyone. You can do anything you want, but trying to do everything all at once is going to end up ruining you and your mindset and your emotions, and can make them skyrocket. Like, you control how much that you take in, and that's another thing. You control your boundaries. Think about yourself in the situation and what's best for you and react that way. Okay, this episode is a lot shorter than last week's episode, but I hope that this helps someone. Like I said, it's really, really hard to get in the headspace of trying to control everything, but it can end in self-sabotage and it can ruin relationships. So it's really, really good to be self-aware and think, this is what I control in this situation and this is not what I control in this situation. If you're in maybe an argument with someone, for example, I think writing down, all right, my emotions, like a list, like this is what I control, this is what I do not control. I control my emotions, I control my responses, I control my feelings, but their feelings and their emotions and their responses are out of my control. And that's the only way you can kind of control a situation, is by controlling yourself in that situation and trusting in God and trusting in the universe that whatever is supposed to happen will happen. I genuinely believe nothing is ever a coincidence. You know, everything happens for a reason. So if you are showing up as your best self, taking that time, remember, 30 minutes to an hour if needed, or taking space, sometimes in a situation when you have big emotions, you know, you're feeling out of control, there's a lot of inputs that you don't have control over and you're trying to control them. Sometimes just taking a step back and cooling down can help you look at it from a different perspective. And in an argument, sometimes it's hard to be like, all right, I need to step back, I need to take space. But genuinely, that can be really, really healthy, because then you can sit and think about it and look back on it and be like, okay, I actually want to respond this way. But if I would have stayed in this situation and stayed in this heated situation, I would have responded out of emotion. And being able to control yourself to the point where you don't respond out of emotion, you respond out of logic. Emotions aren't bad, and I think it's a beautiful thing to have a lot of emotions and feel things so deeply. But when your emotions control you, that's when it gets out of hand. You have control of certain things, just not everything. And your emotions are one of those things. And when you feel out of control, it's really easy to let them have control over you. And you can take back that control. It's all about what you feel like will work for you in that moment. Taking space, taking 30 minutes to just sit and chill and breathe, being able to sit and think logically about the situation. Also controlling your self-talk and like how you talk to yourself every day. You control the thoughts that are going through your head, and sometimes it's hard to think so. And when you're overthinking, it feels overwhelming. Like, I can't control what's going on in my head, but you can train yourself to talk yourself out of those situations and finding affirmations that really, really work for you that you can repeat back to yourself. Like, everything is happening for a reason. You know, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Everything is working out in my favor. I'm doing exactly what I need to be doing. Things like that can help calm your nervous system down and make you feel a lot more level-headed in a situation. With that, I'm gonna end the episode. If you are watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and give it a like if you would like to. Also comment down below if this is something that you've struggled with, like, am I alone in this? And just anything that you feel like you've kind of lost control in. The comments are a very safe space to just kind of like vent. And on some of my videos, I have had people just kind of like vent, like, listen, this is kind of what I'm going through. And it's fun because sometimes other people respond and be like, hey, me too. And this is what I did. And I think it's really fun to be able to do that. So if there's something that you feel like you've been out of control with and you want some input, you can comment them or you can DM me and we can talk about it. My Instagram is always leaked. My Instagram is always linked in the description of every episode. If you are listening to this episode, make sure you leave 5 stars so I know that you liked it. And also you can put a notification bell on so then it'll notify you every single time I upload an episode. Usually I upload them at midnight on Friday though, so that's a good time frame to think of. You can listen to them in the morning when you're getting ready for work, if you're going to the gym, or at night if you want to. You can listen to them at night. If you happen to be a night owl, you can listen to them at midnight when they come out. Totally up to you. That is in your control when you listen to the episode. That being said, I hope you guys have a great weekend and I will see you guys next week.